Hi, and welcome back to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your host, Mr. Elmer Floyd, former House Representative for the 43rd District for the state of North Carolina. That's
Yes.
so grand. How many terms did you serve, sir?
Six before a person wanted to relieve me of my duties and responsibilities.
Yeah, yeah. And I am Tisha S. Waddell, former City Council representative who served 2 terms in office and actually resigned toward the end of my second term, based upon some things that I was seeing in office that really just just weren't right. And I felt like the only way to bring attention to those things was to exit my office honorably, after having served honorably, and to then begin having conversations about what I had seen. And Mr. Floyd, that led us to the inception of the Up Zone. We had a podcast with a former colleague, and we transitioned into the Up Zone, and we're still here today. And our purpose is to make sure that we articulate to our audience what's going on within our community and how they can make sense of it all so that they can make decisions on where they wish to lend their support and where they may want to jump into the fight when necessary. Now, Mr. Floyd, we've had a lot going on, not just in our community, but across our nation. Some things of note that we won't necessarily dive into today. But there's I don't know if you saw this or not. We're going to get into our announcements in just a moment, but I want to talk about these things right fast. I don't know if you saw this or not, Mr. Floyd, but you know that organization 23andMe, the people who do the DNA genetic testing to tell you where your ancestry may come from. Mr. Floyd, their whole board quit on the same day. And they cited that they did not like the direction that the company was going in and no longer wish to be a part of the organization, which lets me know is something going on. Because when you have a whole board, and I'm sure those board members were being compensated for their work on that board. When you have a whole board walk, something ain't right in the water. I was one person who walked. If all 10 of us would have walked, that would have been a problem. So we saw that happening nationally. We also saw, actually, that's a global conversation. We also saw the arrest of Sean Puff Daddy Combs in relation to some human trafficking and some other allegations that have been leveraged against him. And I think that there's a conversation that we will see a lot more people be exposed as a result of these allegations that are coming forward. And Mr. Floyd, I think it's so interesting because as we led the conversation with our time of service at elected office, can you imagine some of the high up elected officials who may be implicated in some of these recordings, or some of the entertainers who may be implicated, and how they may be scrambling right now? I think that's always something that we should be keeping an eye on. So if you're interested in what's happening globally and nationally, most certainly take a look into those topics. Now, here locally in the state of North Carolina, Mr. Floyd, I would like for us to just stop for a moment and think about all of the people in Western North Carolina who have been adversely affected by the flooding from the storm Helen, or Helene, as some people are saying. I just want to remind everyone that there's no way to be prepared for the absolute worst, because even if you have all of the supplies, and if you have all of the things that you think you need, you cannot anticipate every variable. And so our hearts and our minds and our prayers are with the people who have lost their lives, their family members who are left behind. Our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers are with the people whose homes have been devastated, whose communities have been cut off, who have no electricity, no power, no food, no access to roadways. Mr. Floyd, it is just it's absolutely horrific, and I just think that we should be praying for people to come through this, and to for their communities to be rebuilt.
Well, well, Tish, again, Fort Liberty was called up again as the 911 base. They're
Absolutely.
going to send 1,000 military personnel, to assist. And so we can see that uh, that part of the state, which is the beautiful part of our state, the
Most
mountains,
beautiful, one of the most beautiful. Absolutely.
they lost, they lost a lot, and just over the past budget year, we have had a lot of discussion about the reserve, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But if I can just say for those persons who wants to attend, is that the former president will be at the Crown Coliseum tomorrow.
You
Uh,
get your ticket yet?
no, no, no. I want the other people to to uh, to be a
To
part
have
of
an
it.
opportunity to attend,
Yeah,
as do I. I want to make sure that other people have room to be able to get in there. And I tell you what, I'm glad that he's coming. I'm glad that he's showing up in Fayetteville. I hope that we maintain safety protocols, and that we as a community do not do anything to besmirch further our reputation, and that we are elegant in the way that we receive our former president, and that even if you don't agree with his policies or his politics or the fact that he is running, that you can allow him to come and do what he does, and that you don't have to be all riled up about it in the interim.
well, I mean, you know, that's the key. I don't have to agree with his policies, but I think that that person has a right to go wherever he pleases to
Absolutely.
campaign.
Mr. Floyd, did you watch the vice presidential debate?
I watched that, and I just scratched it as 50-50.
How, you scratched it as 50-50?
Yes.
Vance whooped on Waltz. I'm gonna just leave that right there.
That's what I just marked it as as 50, as 50-50. The unique thing about listening and watching debate is that is word use.
Oh, absolutely.
How word use can be articulated to people, and people who are not informed would easily be flipped.
Absolutely.
I just listened. I watched it as a 50-50 debate, the way they answer questions and didn't answer questions. And so, that's how
No,
I
I completely agree with you, Mr. Floyd, completely.
that's
And
how I saw it.
absolutely. And I'll tell you, one of the masters of communication in our community that I have seen is our own Mayor Mitch Colvin. One of those people who has the ability to play on words, and it's such a skill. If you possess it, it truly does shift the dynamic. And this is something that I think that both you and I are probably also very good at when necessary, because in order to be not only an effective communicator, but a good politician, you have to know how to be able to get the message forward that you want to get forward, regardless of the question that's on the table. And I just think that that's such a it's a skill that you possess. Yeah,
That I mean, that's what That's what take place out there. So, as a you know, things like that. We have to pay attention to because we
absolutely.
talk about those things. But I'm not moved,
One
just
way or the other, right?
one way or the other as it relates to, because I don't want people to take for granted. Um, just like in the General Assembly, I never discussed how I was going to vote on a matter
Right.
because you lose, you gain, and people. What I mean by that, if people already know how you're going to vote, then why should I waste my
Why
time?
should I even? Yeah, yeah. I don't even have to waste my time.
And that's the problem with the African American community. I mean, you know, if we stop and look, I mean, I look at Sherry Beasley when she ran for the U.S. When she ran for the U.S. Senate,
Hmm.
and then I look at Josh Stein as he is running for the governor, and I just wonder where
Who
his mind.
who refuses to debate the lieutenant governor, by the way. Yes.
And I watched, how the Divine Nine come out for the president, and
The vice president.
yeah, yes. But it didn't come out for Sherry Beasley. I see where the Black Caucus came out and endorsed Stein. I didn't see where they came out and endorsed Sherry Beasley when she was running for a statewide office. So I just see it as how we are so easily to manipulate and get behind candidates because they talk with Mary James and Mary Jane talked with Sally Sue and John and Doe, and all of a sudden they get behind these person. But when Sherry Beasley was running, or and when Representative Harley was running for the run for the lieutenant governor, I didn't see these African American
You don't
women.
see them show up and lend their support.
No,
And
no.
here's what's interesting, Mr. Floyd. And if I'm not mistaken, Sherry Beasley is a member of a sorority, if I'm not mistaken, because I think I saw her pin when she showed up at one of the polling sites.
Mm,
Mr. Floyd, of interest to me lately has been a conversation that I've been watching on a podcast that Candace Owens hosts. And who, by the way, her grandfather lives in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I don't know if anybody knew that or not.
mm,
But Candace Owens is doing a deep dive because there's been some conversation about the about whether or not Kamala Harris is a black person, whether or not her family is actually black. And what Candace Owen has exposed is eye-opening. And I will tell people, if you are making this decision, and I'm gonna just say this, if you are lending your support to this candidate because you look at her and you're so proud of the fact that she's an accomplished woman who happens to also be black, if her blackness is a factor for you, I want you to watch on YouTube or on Rumble episodes like 73, 74, 75, and 76 of Candace Owens' expose, where she is doing this deep dive into the genealogy of the family of Kamala Harris. I think that you will be very surprised. It gives me, do you remember Rachel Dolezal? It puts me in the mind of Rachel Dolezal. And I think that, if we're going to be fair and equitable, and if we don't want to be manipulated, if we want a person to stand on the merit of their capacity and not their genealogy or their ethnic composition, I think that you guys should go and check that out. And I'll just leave that there. Now, Mr. Floyd, we have also I want to go back to something you said earlier because I think that it's important in the context of what we were talking about with the storm damage in Western North Carolina, uh, which is fund balance. Let's talk about, because there's a lot of people who look at fund balance and they go, well, why don't we use that for this? Or why don't we take the fund balance and apply it to this? Mr. Floyd, what are we seeing now that makes us go, good job, North Carolina, with maintaining your fund balance?
Well, Tish, if we'll go back and just look at when the first, when the governor vetoed the budget, each year the state budget grows about $1 billion a year. Okay. So the state is going to operate, even though the governor vetoed the budget, the operation just goes back to the previous year, which
Mm-hmm.
was 2018 and 2019. And
Right.
on top of that, we had the virus, your corporate, and and the federal government poured more money into states.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the 2018 budget and the 2020 budget with no funding, okay, what I mean by no funding, that allowed the General Assembly to build up a reserve from that budget
Right.
and from COVID funding, and then with a surplus would bring it up to about 4.75 billion, but they used about 473 million of that to do scholarship. Now,
Mm-hmm.
just suppose that we would have put that money into education, the whole 4.5 billion,
Then Western North
4.75 billion.
Carolina would be in a lot of trouble, a lot more trouble than it is right now.
In other words, the General Assembly would have to find next week when they convene is who is going to lose money, showing that they could help the people in Western North Carolina.
Absolutely.
So with the fund reserve, they can utilize some of that money and also use some of that money as matching dollars to receive additional funds. So that's why the Senate had a problem with the House saying that the House wanted to spend too much of the rainy day, and
Hmm.
that's what it set up for these special kinds of
For a
events.
rainy day.
That's what that's what it
For
set
a
up.
rainy day. Absolutely.
I mean, so if we had poured all that money or a large sum of that money into education, then we could not do it. We could not help. But on the top of that, look at the interest that that money draws. At the same time, if it's properly invested, which they do. So that's why you have to be careful about just pouring all of your money or you putting a large sum of money in one particular pot.
I want to ask you a question, Mr. Floyd. And it may sound like a loopy question, but this question was asked to me, and when somebody asked me, it had me scratching my head for at least a week. As a legislator, did you ever inquire about where the state of North Carolina banks?
Well, you know, that's a good question, Teach, because, you know, I never really thought about it because office budget and management handle all of that, you know. So it's their responsibility to look at how state dollars are spent based upon the budget. So,
But where, this is the question. So, like, a family may say, well, I bank with BB&T, or I bank with USAA, or whoever they may bank with, right? Who does the state of North Carolina, and I'm gonna bring it home, and there's a reason I'm asking this question. Who does the state of North Carolina bank with, and who does Cumberland County bank with, and who does the city of Fayetteville bank with? Who houses those dollars?
now, back uh, when I was employed with the city, there was a local bank. Well, I think was Southern National Bank, I believe, at that particular point in time. That's where the city uh, used to have. If I'm not mistaken, I've been some years ago. There now, the city the city was required to deposit. City pays every 2 weeks. So the city was required to have that deposit in the bank 3 days prior to that Friday.
Mm-hmm.
You understand that now, T.
Mm-hmm.
3 days, and the city pays 26 times per year.
Mm-hmm.
And the city and the county had the same banks, I believe.
Okay.
So, but the county and the city pays every other. If the city pays this week, the
County
county
pays it. Right.
deposit. So if you multiply 26 times 2, you will see how much interest that can be made off that money that deposit 3 days in advance.
Let me tell you why I'm asking this question. Because when it was asked to me, it was asked in the context of as a legislator. And again, we exist for understanding politics. So, in the context of a legislator, do you know where the bank account is? And when you are provided your budget, are there ever times like when you're provided a budget to review, do you just take at face value that this budget it accurately reflects whatever the ledger of your accounts are, or are you all given in addition to this budget a ledger so that you can see that this actually equates to what you have?
Okay, what we receive from our staff is a forecast.
Right.
We receive that
Which is
forecast.
also what the city would receive. We would receive a budgetary forecast, and we'd get spreadsheets and all of these things. But there's no way as a legislator that I can legitimately say that nobody's skimming money because I never see the books.
Well, that's why you have, like in ours, you have office budget and management that manage whatever money
And
that
we have
we get.
finance.
that that's appropriated now. Now,
But let
bam,
me tell you, but Mr. Floyd, even with those checks and balances, right? Here's why this question stumped me. Because any other time I would have just dismissed that and said, there's checks and balances in place, right? That's not necessarily what the legislators need to see. Here's why it stumped me. I remember while in office, we had an event come up. I'm not going to say any names. We had an event come up. And when this event came up, I remember we all got a text message, and it was sort of frantic that a member of staff was getting ready to hand somebody a check in excess of $30,000, but that before they were able to do that, and it was not a member of staff that should be been had access to this check by our estimation. But before they were getting ready to do that, it was kind of caught, and they were demanded to bring it back, and the check was destroyed. But the question that I had was, where'd they get a checkbook from?
well, now, bear in mind, if you can recall, back with Federal Tech, I think that the county, uh, 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 there was somewhere, I believe it was Federal Tech, that $1 million check was
Yes.
transferred.
Yes.
Supposed to go to. So there are checks. So who the banks are, like I said,
But do you think that it would be accurate and let's just take it to the city level. Do you think that it would be a fair ask for a city council representative, or for that body, the board, the city council, during their budget process, to say, in addition to the budget, we would like for you to present us with a copy of the bank ledger?
Okay. Now now when you look at that, the state pays
This
in
wasn't even on our notes, Mr. Floyd, but go
state,
ahead.
the state has investors uh, that make somewhere in the neighborhood of about 345 plus $1,000 a year to invest.
Invest their money.
Okay,
Right.
so that's why it's very difficult for me to say, uh, you know, who the state, who handles all of this money. It's
Right.
like it's just like when I see the used to be the Wells Fargo truck come by and pick up all this money
Right.
and carry it to wherever they carried it, and then disperse all the money that they pick up to
Right.
accounts that these organization or business have. So that's why, with me, I rely one on the Office of Budget and Management that gives, I'm sorry, the staff that give us the forecast, and then the Office of Budget and Management to look at that, and then the state auditor to make sure
Right.
that money is spent. I mean, for the bank, it's obvious that the check is good, you know, based on the process. So,
I just want our audience to be paying attention to that question. I want you to keep that question in your pocket over the next 6 months. Just keep that question in your pocket that I just asked over the next 6 months. And just let it, don't think too much about it, but just keep it in your pocket over the next
but
6 months.
I mean, now it's easy to do, Tish. It's just see. I mean, like with ours, we know that I think it was Southern National Bank. That you know, like when we went to direct deposit, they was the one that handled.
So here's the thing, and I was getting ready to say, back in the day when we used to get a paycheck, it was very easy to know where the checks were drawn. But now most people, if not all, are required to receive direct deposit, which means when you get a direct deposit, there's no ledger that says that your direct deposit was deposited from this bank on behalf of this corporation. You
Well,
just get your pay, and it's a CIFAY, whatever, whatever, as your direct deposit line.
well, the key thing now, Chief, is that like I said, I depend on the office budget and the manager to do that. But the key thing now is that they ask you, can I have your routing now?
Can I have your routing and account number? Exactly. So, Mr. Floyd, moving forward, let me ask you a question, because the fund balance was a conversation that candidates have been having. They've been being asked this question. What are some of the things that we're hearing as speaking points coming from these candidates at their different at the different forums?
Well, one thing that they talked about, and which is it, it, it was a good conversation. That is that E. Smith High School need to be relocated. You had more positive than negative
Mm-hmm.
there. So that was one of the discussion there. But the chairman of the board, which is a graduate of Smith, has said it's not a high priority.
Right.
But at the same time, you want these students to compete on the global market.
Globally. Absolutely.
But the school is not retrofitted so they can compete at a global market. So when my thing of it is that when you say that it's not a high priority, but then again, one candidate said that the reason why she voted against moving it to the site that was recommended was because of economic, that it will stimulate economic development in the Murchison Road. I've been here ever since Genesis, and UT has been talking about the Murchison Road improvement. And the next thing I hear you say is based upon a grant.
Grants.
Not, not we gonna help jump to start it by doing some economic development. And I just wish that you stop telling me that and then come back and tell me each year that you're gonna reapply for the grant.
Yeah.
Just don't even get me all riled up because I attended a meeting at Kingdom Impact. I never forget this meeting. Two of your council members came in that meeting and said to about 200 plus people, the reason why we voted for the stadium to be where it is now is because the investors said that they were not going to invest in the Murchison Road College.
Right.
So that was why that person said that she
And
was.
I've told you over and over, every time you remind me of that, I tell you over and over that I was told when I came on council that that each council member was called into a major developer's office. That developer told them, "You're not gonna put it there," and they left out of there with this as their answer. Okay.
I mean, see, that's why I teach. I'm not a representative today because I said to our governor that I couldn't give back $132 million. They
Absolutely.
spent $1 million to unseat me. So if I was on the city council and if you told me that, you would have had one no vote.
Absolutely. Just on the strength of we've already made this decision and you're not going to bully me. Mr. Floyd, you and I think that's why we are here doing this podcast together is because we share that in common. There's a certain level of respect that you have to have for your constituency that says, I'm not going to be bullied by the powers that be just because they're the powers that be, because the real powers that be are the people who elected me and put me here.
Well, see, that's why if I can fast forward you back to District 1, and that is Don Davis District, which has about 744,000 people
Hmm.
that the Harris campaign haven't went over that way, but it's a swing district. That's because my party don't like Don Davis because Don Davis has voted for his constituents, but they want to maintain they they want to control the Senate, I mean the House, so that they can help carry Harrison's agenda forward.
Hmm.
But what
Hmm.
people don't realize is that all the comments that is made, either the vice president or the former president, if they don't have support from Congress or the members of the General Assembly, all their thoughts are in vain. And even
Absolutely.
if they use executive order, then that executive order is going to carry them into court, both North Carolina Court, Supreme Court, and the United States Supreme Court are not in our favor.
Absolutely. What is the General Assembly meeting about this week?
Well, next week I believe
Next week.
I believe they're going to take up some funding for Western Carolina, but I
Okay.
think that it would be for the discussion, because they won't have at that particular point a dollar value in order to 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 do that. And normally those kind of bills take 3 days, just a 3 day bill process. So they are going to have to get some type figures about how much money they want to provide to Western North Carolina out of the 4.75 billion.
Okay. Okay. Now, speaking of Western North Carolina, we were talking a bit about insurance rates because one of the questions that I asked is what is the likelihood that a person who lives in the mountains carries flood insurance? Because Mr. Floyd, I was watching this TikTok video that was talking about Western North Carolina being one of the places in the nation that has the highest deposits of lithium underground, and that there has been some kickback about the citizens not wanting corporations to come in and mine that lithium, um, and that there was some conversation that some of this devastation may be tied to a lack of, I don't know, even know, like, you know how how the theorists say, but one of the points that they made was that a lot of people in the mountains don't carry flood insurance. Do you think that that's accurate? Because if you're in the mountains, do you think in your mind that you need flood insurance?
Well, one may think that, I mean, the question the question of it is, can you get flood insurance?
That's the question.
That's
That's the
what
question.
because you have some insurance companies just like on the coast. Some won't insure property. I mean, on the coast because it is known to be a hurricane or whatever you want to call it area. In the mountain, the person say, "Well, we don't sell it," because it may or may not be likely that
Right,
have a flood. I mean, so it based, but but anytime, teacher, I don't care where you are, if you have, if it's been raining before, and you have stationary rain that's dumping water,
right.
I don't care whether
You're
it's
going to have flooding.
you're gonna have because it's just like I said, and I said many times about the city of Fayetteville. I probably dead and gone, but Fayetteville need to look at its draining, how water, you know, how they move water through the city.
Mr. Floyd, I was on Murkison Road. I went to, and this was just a rainy day. It wasn't a flood or a hurricane or anything. On a rainy day, I was on Murkison Road at Rudy's. And I was walking in, when you park on the side where you're walking in to go to the jewelry department, not the
I heard of that place. I haven't been there, but I
yes,
heard
you have. I was just going window shopping.
jewelry section over there. Okay.
I walked in, and I got out of my car, I parked, and when I got out, and I drive an SUV, so it sits up high. I got out and I stepped down, and the water was rushing by like a little miniature stream, and I was just baffled
What
because
was what was it running towards, Tish?
I have no idea.
If you walked out, if you stepped out the car, and basically thinking, Tish, that's
It
just
was running down. It was going, of course, it had to be going down because
down
water moves.
towards the street.
Right. But
So
here's the thing though. And it was about this deep, Mr. Floyd. The water was at least 3 inches deep, and it was moving, and it had a current to it. So I went inside and I said, y'all got a stream forming out there in your parking lot. And the guy came out because he was gonna help me when I was getting ready to leave. He's gonna try to help me to my car. I said, don't worry about it, because I was this deep now in the water already. But here's what was interesting. I immediately recognized what you say all the time. And I told him, I said, our infrastructure in the city of Fayetteville is failing. We need to invest in repairing our failing infrastructure. It's not just about putting in sidewalks. We have to also repair the failing infrastructure, because a heavy deluge, and I learned that word from Community Watch, a heavy deluge, which is a large downpour of rain that sort of sits over you, will cause flooding in areas, whether it's a storm event or not.
well, Tish, one thing that a storm or a wind or F3 hurricane, you know, they are going to bring debris towards whatever runoff is there, and it's going I mean, when I was in the Journal Assembly, one thing that I was wanted to do was to get $250,000 appropriated, so that the city of Fayetteville can use this drone to look at the streams and creeks, you know, like in May,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
prior to the hurricane season, and to clean them out. That will help some in moving the water, but I do believe that the city of Fayetteville is going to have to look at some kind of canal system if they intend to, to
To
grow.
move this water.
I mean, you can get you can get just like Walgreens up the street from me. You know, they have a catch base. Well, I mean, if you say water stand, so do my little things that bite you stand also,
That's right.
because water stand.
That's right.
And if you live in, well, I think out here with the new shopping center right across from Best Buy, they have about one of the biggest systems that contain water runoff.
They
So,
sure do.
so, so when you look at it, I mean, you you you're doing the development, but you're not looking at the infrastructure. You just put it there and hope
Well, and
that.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about how these developers can call their city council people into their office because see, canals are not as inexpensive as a containment pond. So or a detention pond or whatever they're called. So if you are the developer and you threaten your city council and say you're going to halt development, you're going to stop people from coming in and developing, you're making the restrictions too stringent because people, that's what's happening. They're getting these phone calls and these emails from developers within the local community that are saying this is going to halt development. And so you end up with these lazy restrictions that do just the bare minimum to be able to say, well, we've to check the box and say we've done something. But I want to go back to what you were saying about insurance rates, because Mr. Floyd, also across the state of North Carolina, something that we see are houses that are on the coast. So up like near the Outer Banks. There are houses, or is it Hatteras? One of these coastal regions. The houses are literally three so far this year have slipped off into the sea because the shore is eroding. So as the shore is eroding, it is causing homes that are built on the coast to slip into the sea. Well, quite naturally, what insurance company is going to want to extend insurance to an area where they're likely going to have to pay out the total value of a rebuild of your house, a beach house at that?
Well, sometimes the insurance company in conjunction with the General Assembly, and I forgot this
You
house,
said it. I'm so glad you said that. Go ahead.
some kind of way they sort of work hand in hand uh, to provide, insurance in that area.
So,
Um,
Mr. Floyd, am I to infer from what you're saying that legislators have a hand in how insurance plays out?
Somewhat.
So, am I to infer that who I vote for matters in regards to how I'm insured and how my
Teach,
insurance rates are also?
teach. Don't worry about it. Teach. Don't worry about it. Teach. Because you just like the rest of the African American. You gonna vote on how you feel, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
So that's a yes. People need to understand that the everyday functions of their life, whether you can get flood insurance, whether your health insurance is expensive, whether or not all of these things are legislative functions.
Teach. Don't worry about it. Don't even be concerned about it.
Mr. Floyd, how many lobbyists are in North Carolina lobbying for insurance companies? Not just medical insurance, but car insurance, property, any type of insurance.
It's it's one of the committees that you would like to serve on. I leave it at that.
Okay. So, people, what I'm trying to say to you is as you understand the political process, please understand this is all political. So if you cannot get insured, if you cannot insure your car at a reasonable rate, if you cannot insure your home because of where you live, It's all political. There are lobbyists who are saying this is
Don't
costing
worry
us
about
to
it, Chief. Don't worry about it, Chief. You vote on how you feel.
vote for how you feel.
That's how they do it. They don't care whether or not you look at whether or not there's a price increase or how it's going to affect your area. You just want to fit in to sit in, and what we do as minorities, we send these people to Raleigh, okay? And they have no clue of how they've been manipulated. They just want to fit in and sit in, so we send them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Teach. I mean, yeah, and
We need to do better, Mr.
I didn't mean to be mean to you,
We
but
need to do better. We need to do better. And that's
it's no
that's
hope.
just all there is to it. There needs to be
It's no hope because that we have been so manipulated that they can come into our community and tell us who
what to
they
do.
want to represent them.
Period. And the last two things I want to hit on, Mr. Floyd, I meant to talk about this during announcements, but I was kind of disheartened because I heard that one of our candidates for office, who's currently seated, made a comment at an event recently about her opponent and said that and her opponent is so the currently seated candidate is a black female seated in District 19 for the Senate. Her opponent is also a black female. One is a Democrat, one is a Republican. And apparently, this individual made a comment that she was disheartened, and I'm paraphrasing, disheartened at the fact that this other black woman would allow people to use her to run against another black woman. I need for everybody to understand that if somebody is running against you, it has nothing to do with their disloyalty to other black people. It is about the fact that they believe that they could do a better job than you for their community in the capacity that you are currently serving in. And that's all it is. So your black femaleness does not secure your position with all other black females. We are not some monolith that believe that just because you have a vagina like us and your skin is brown like ours, I'm sorry, Mr. Floyd, that makes you untouchable by us. It does not. If you are not, if your policies don't line up with what's important to us, you're expendable.
Teach,
And that is just what it is.
it don't make no difference. Teach. Only thing we want to know is that we can get 95% of your Democrats to vote
For
one
the
way.
candidate that they want.
Yeah, 95%. Because when you look at it, I mean, even at our Democratic convention, there's only 95% of the people that are there are African American. Okay,
Yeah.
so only thing they want you to do, Tish, is to mark that ballot,
The
and we
way
don't
they
have to
say.
advertise. We don't have to think. You don't even have to think, Tish. That I mean, we would tell you, and I never forget when someone come and tell you that that's the person that I remember the governor coming here and one representative chief bought in $413 million or $32 million in a tier one community.
And got their hand
You
popped.
you teach voted them out of office.
I didn't because I wasn't in their district. I
Four hundred.
wasn't in that district because I would have never upheld that. Let me say this real quick, and I'm trying to move us because I know you have somewhere to be, and I need to wrap up, Mr. Floyd, here shortly. But listen, two things. The first thing is I think we need to do better, just like you think we need to do better. Will that happen? Who knows? Who knows? But admittedly, the lieutenant governor's staff walked after all of this, all of this stuff came out alleging that he made these comments on a pornographic website. I just want to give him kudos because as he went through to start replacing his staff, he brought in a chief of staff. Her name is Krishana Polite. She is now we're mentioning this because it's a big deal to some people, Mr. Floyd, but she is the first black female chief of staff for the lieutenant governor. That's not what's impressive to me. What's impressive to me is I know this woman. And this woman truly is impressive. She's smart, she's balanced, she's very focused. Krishana Polite came to our community at my invitation while I was in office to facilitate a dialogue between Democrats and Republicans, where she brought them in the room and helped them to find common ground, which I think is so important politically. So I think what we see in her is a very balanced chief of staff. While she is serving for a Republican lieutenant governor, she most certainly has her finger on the pulse of what is important both to Democrats and Republicans alike. And so I want to congratulate her on her position. Lieutenant Governor has hired somebody to look into these allegations that CNN leveraged against him. I still think that it has more to do with what's happening in Washington, D.C. than what they want to see in North Carolina, because they do have to take North Carolina in order to be successful in their bid for presidency in Washington, D.C.
She said, I think that, you know, when we look at it from a state standpoint of view,
Hmm.
the Republican, candidate is leading by 2 points over, and it goes back to something that I've always said, that we're missing certain part of the state, and we continue to do the same thing, and that is what happened to us. We're not building our base. We're going into what I refer to as already Democrat districts. Uh,
Right.
for instance, Charlotte, Greensboro, Cary, Durham,
Strongholds. The
already
places who are,
Democrat
yeah.
strongholds.
Right, right.
But these individuals that you send this money to, you get all this contribution sent through $3, $7. These individuals are being paid well,
Hmm.
and I don't see where these individuals have advised the Harrison campaign that they need to go into the U.S. House District 1 with all the money that they are making, and they're making pretty good money, too,
Right.
and working with these campaigns. So again, you said something that I prefer not to hear, but you said that she is the first.
I know, Mr. Floyd,
I mean, you
because
know,
we hear that all the time yeah, I know.
but again, Tish, we we have a chance to move North Carolina, and North Carolina has 16 electoral college votes, and that's why it's critical. We
Absolutely.
picked up one House member, which gave us 14, and what we are going to do, based upon the redistricting, we're going to add three more possible Republican seats. It was 7-7.
Hmm.
So if we can't get any help in Don Davis, it might be 11-3 or 10-4. There's a possibility that you can do 10-4 if the party begin to look at, let's go across the state in rural areas. You did a bus tour in Georgia,
Right.
so why you can't do a bus tour into the northeastern part of North Carolina to let those people that you say are grassroots based see that they are important. Like even William Barber, that was on CNN, mentioned the fact that they have not been into the northeastern part of North Carolina.
Right.
So
What
I don't know what it can take to.
What are your final thoughts, Mr. Floyd?
Well, again, I just hope someone in these winding days, before we do that, Chief, let me say this right here.
Go ahead.
You know, please, if you're going to vote and you're going to vote by absentee ballot, don't trust the postal system of getting your ballot there.
They said we will deliver your votes.
Chief, let me repeat now. They, they'll deliver what's in their chute. Okay, it's no doubt about that. That they would do that, but there's no guarantee that it's going to travel appropriately.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't take no risk on that. If I get an absentee ballot, I will catch a taxi or Uber or Google or whatever. I want my vote to count because I don't trust it to be there by 7:30 on the day of election.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I was talking to a guy in my church. He was a deacon, and he talked with me Sunday, and he showed me, you know, how they send you all these messages that you are not registered to vote and all this
Right.
stuff. And he said that I voted in every election, and I said, okay.
Mr. Floyd, I voted in every election and my registration is inactive. My husband's is inactive. Somebody is going in inactivating registrations because I've voted in every election.
Mhm.
But you know what happens when they make you inactive? You don't get mailers. All of the mailers that have come to my house have been in my daughter's names.
Mhm.
My husband and I have not received mailers because we are inactive on the registration rolls. So go in and check. Now it's too late for the mailers, but they'll probably keep sending them. But go in and check your registration status because people are being inactivated who have voted in every election.
That's what I told him. I know you asked me to close out, but that's what I asked him. And I said, if you don't want to do it tomorrow, you got the week. I mean, the 2 weeks of early voting to go and find out, you know, whether you are or whether you're not.
Right,
And go by the board of elections.
right.
Contact the board of elections. But the question of it is, Tish, before we close, I think normally the Board of Election moved its headquarters to the Kiwanis Club, during the election period of time. But that's something that the voters need to understand whether or not that it would be
On
Fountain.
Maiden Lane, Fountainhead Lane or over at
I'm
Kiwanis
sure
Club.
both of them will probably be operable, but you should check. That's why you should go and vote early and see if
Check your stuff out. Make sure you're good. Yeah, yeah.
if
What's your closing words?
huh? Please, can you help me get somebody to go in the northeastern part of the county? I mean, state, and help the Democrat Party campaign. You know anybody that we can talk to?
Those people. Anyway, Mr. Floyd, my final thoughts are be kind to your neighbor, love one another, and make sure that at the end of the day, whoever you vote for, you can stand before your creator and justify why you did that. And because it's not about all of us liking who you voted for. It's about you making sure that constitutionally, and I don't mean the Constitution of the United States, according to your constitutional makeup, that you've made a decision that is well with your soul and that you can justify before your heavenly father should that become necessary. um that's all I got, Floyd.
Well, I am going to vote in the November election. You
Well,
don't.
tell a friend. Look, tell a friend to tell a friend. Like, share, subscribe, and follow. And I guess we'll catch you on the next episode.
All right.